Jimmie, you're heading into arguably one of your best tracks, which is Martinsville this weekend. Talk a little bit about your team's expectations and approach with 4 races to go in the chase.
Yeah, I mean, it's pressure time. It's go time. It's all that stuff that we know with 4 to go. The points as tight as they are. And we expect to be one of the cars racing for the win. And you go over the past few years there, you can think of the 11, the 24, us, and 29. You know, there's a handful of cars that you expect to run in that lead group, and those are our expectations, and our hopes are to win. If we can get points on the 11 and the 2, especially the 2 at this point, that would be ideal. So we're showing up, racing hard, putting in everything we've got, which is to be expected by everybody at this point, and we'll see how things turn out.
Thank you, and we'll now go to the media for questions for today's NASCAR Cam video teleconference guest, Jimmie Johnson.
Thank you. The floor is now open for questions. If you do have a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad at this time. If at any time your question has been answered, you may remove yourself from the queue by pressing 1. Again, ladies and gentlemen, if you do have a question or comment, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad at this time. Please hold while we poll for questions. Our first question comes from Brad Gilley of Performance Racing.
Jimmie, thanks for taking the time, first of all. Looking at the chase right now, I mean, in the past, it seems like at this point, it's almost been like a 2-driver race. I mean, last year it was Tony and Carl. The 5 years before that, it was, you know, you versus Denny, Jeff, Mark, Greg, Carl, or anyone else that you fought against in the chase. But now it seems like we got 4 or 5 contenders right now. Can you remember a time when it was opened up this much as it is right now?
To be honest, I didn't see the points after the race in Kansas. I was so occupied with where I was to the 2 car. I haven't looked. So from the sounds of it, it is tight. It is close, and that's great. I mean, that's what the fans want to see. It's what our sport needs. And I know Clint drew closer with his performance at Charlotte. So it's go time. You know, this is what. It's tough to live it because it's so stressful, but this is what we all grew up wanting to experience and be a part of as kids, and racing for a championship and duking it out, and it's here.
And you mentioned, you know, Martinsville is a big opportunity for you, obviously, with your history there. How about looking ahead a week to Texas? Let's say you go into Texas and, you know, maybe you've got the points leader, you're a little bit closer up. What kind of opportunity do you see there?
I see a good opportunity. I know that we'll have, you know, a fast race car. 1.5 mile stuff's been very strong. We finished second there in the spring. So from a performance standpoint, I think, you know, we're ready to show up there and race. Fuel mileage we're getting better at. I still think that, you know, there's some teams out there doing a little bit better job in preserving, not using, I don't know how to exactly phrase it, but getting better fuel mileage. We're in the ballpark for once, which is nice. So, you know, we might be a little weak there to some other teams, but that would be my only concern about Texas, and there, you know, there are a lot of green flag runs there.
Well, best of luck to you. Thanks for taking the time.
Appreciate it.
Our next question comes from George Diaz of Orlando Centennial.
Hey, Jim, how's it going?
Good.
Can you just going into these next round of races? Do you basically just race how you normally would be doing, or do you push it in terms of being aggressive?
Well, I mean, there's sometimes when you have a car that's not handling right, or it's just one of those weekends where things aren't clicking. You've got to be smart about it and get every point you can, but not be stupid, not create more issues, fighting for a spot or hanging on to something or fighting with your team. You know, then there's other weekends when you've got the car and it is time to take some chances. So it just depends on the situation. At the end of the day, you know, first of all, you have to finish the race. So, you know, I almost eliminated that our chances at a chase by crashing last week, and luckily we got the car fixed. So, you know, I can't be spinning the car out and be hopeful that we're going to get away with it. So, walking that fine line that we all talk about from time to time is very tough to do, but all important.
Thank you.
Yep.
Our next question comes from Bob Pockrass of the Sporting News.
Yeah, Jimmie, I was wondering, with Dale Jr. being back in the car in the 88 this weekend, does that impact how you guys perform at all? Does his presence or any of his feedback relate especially well for you at a place like Martinsville?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Junior and I have worked very hard now that we're in the same shop to understand the way we describe things and how and why and all that stuff. And, you know, we're just, with 2 weeks working with Regan, it was tough to know exactly what his sensations were in the car. He gave great feedback, and we're, you know, building trust in what he was saying and how to apply that to our cars. But, you know, it was so brief that it's hard to really say we could take a lot from that. So it is helpful to have Junior back in the car, and I'm very happy that he is back in the car. Saw him this afternoon at our team lunch and debrief meetings, and the guy's smiling ear to ear. So he's excited, and we're very happy to have him back.
And I'm curious, do you know, have you or have a lot of other drivers taken like extra look at just as far as the impact of concussions and, you know, and things maybe that you should do if you do have a hard hit now? I mean, has there been any more awareness or any more kind of, I guess, maybe, for lack of a better term, investigation by you guys into what you should do the next time you have a hard hit?
From the driver's standpoint, no, and from my standpoint, no. I would have to imagine NASCAR and their process, and I haven't had a concussion with the new system that's in place, so I'm not sure what all is entailed there. But I would assume they're more aware and more conscious of what goes on. So I hope to not test the procedure or have to go through it and understand how it all works. But from a driver's standpoint, there's very little we can do. I mean, our seats are what they are, the foam systems. You know, we make decisions on what brand of helmet that you want to use. Our harness devices are mandatory. So I don't know what we could really change until you have the injury. And at that point, I haven't been through that process before, or of recent times. So I'm sure it's heightened a lot since my last concussion and really since Junior's incident.
Thank you.
Yep.
Our next question comes from Jerry Fraley of Dallas Morning News.
Jimmie, as you said, it is a stressful time, and you've been through this stress, I think, 8 or 9 years now. Have you found that annually you're better able to handle it and therefore better able to perform because of that knowledge?
Yeah, without a doubt. Experience is so helpful. Just my friends, and after we were able to win the first to the second and so forth and so on, everybody would share with me once the season was over how stressed I was. And I knew I was stressed, but I thought I was at least hiding it well. And year one, I wasn't hiding it all that well. And by year 5, I actually found a way to enjoy myself down the stretch and in the final race. So, and that's led to this year. I mean, last year I didn't enjoy myself because we weren't performing like we wanted to, and it's hard to have fun when you don't get the results that you want. But this year we've been working hard, and the results are there, and it's been even more fun and more relaxed, and I feel we're doing a better job as a result.
Thank you.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you do have a question or comment, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad at this time. Our next question comes from Jason Sholin of NASCAR.com.
Hey, Jimmie, I know you talked about Texas a little bit earlier. Can you just talk about kind of how that racing surface stacks up against some of the other mile-and-a-half tracks on the circuit?
Yeah, it's a little bit older, so we have a higher tire wear. Most cases, I don't want to say you'll never take 2, but 4 tires really makes a big difference there. We'll race from the line to the wall, something we haven't seen, or we weren't able to see at Kansas. So, and this new asphalt that we have at like Charlotte, Michigan, Kansas, Phoenix, it doesn't wear the tire, and the car gets really nervous. There's a lot of grip, but when you get close to the edge of traction, the car gets nervous and starts kind of wandering around a little bit and then spins out on you. So Texas doesn't have that feeling. You can actually slide the car and drift it around. And it's really just the interaction between the tire and the surface itself. So Texas, although it's fast and plenty challenging, you can at least drift it a little bit and not get in trouble.
Thanks, Jimmy. Good luck this weekend.
You got it.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you do have a question or comment, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad at this time. Our next question comes from Brett Winningham of RacingWheels.com.
Hey, Jimmy, what were some of the things you were surprised on how much the track changed from Thursday to Sunday at Kansas?
The first few days, it really didn't take rubber, which surprised me. And it took the nationwide race, I think, to finally get a second lane started. And really at the end of the race, for the Cup cars, we saw the second lane come in. It was odd because you could see where the right side tires were laying rubber and making the track black, but where the left sides run, if they put kitty litter down or somebody was dragging their splitter, the left side tire wouldn't even clean that off the track, which was really odd. So NASCAR and Goodyear need to bring a hard tire to these new surfaces, but I feel like the cooler conditions kept the tires from really laying rubber like we would expect. And the track didn't change much through the course of the weekend. It stayed the same because it wasn't really laying rubber down. The biggest change really was the weather conditions, a little bit of sun on one day, but the winds, the first 2 days, the winds were so brutal out there. It was hard to even stand up, let alone drive the race car.
Okay, my next question is, what is the most difficult thing? Is it for a driver going to a track with a new repave and reconfiguration?
The way NASCAR is letting us test these new tracks, or when a track's repaved, I think helps us all out, and there really aren't any challenges to gripe about. I mean, we get 2 days of on-track testing with the data. You can miss it and just be off and have a bad weekend, but the way they let us go out and use all of our tools to make the car better, to work on the driver's inputs, you can compare against your teammates and how they're driving. There's really nothing to complain about. It's a great way to handle it.
All right, well, thank you very much, and good luck at Martinsville this weekend, Jimmy.
Thank you.
Our next question comes from Jenna Fryer of Associated Press.
Hey, Jimmy. Denny tweeted the other day, time for max points. And since he's got a penchant for sort of taking to Twitter to project what he thinks he might do, does that give you any pause for this weekend, or do you just sort of laugh at him? That'll be my first part of the question.
No, I mean, there's no reason to laugh. It's a great track for him, and everybody has ways that they express themselves, want to motivate themselves or their team, fan base. Some people feel that's important to do. And how they want to handle it. I mean, I put six-pack on a lot of stuff, as you know, hashtag it that, just to, make my fans feel and know that that's where my head is. So I don't see anything wrong with it, anything bad with it, and it's a great track for them.
You two, the two of you went through a stretch where you pretty much dominated the place, and you guys were the two to beat. The last three, neither of you won. I know that maybe you were the guy that should have gotten the win there in the spring. Is it still, do you think you two are the favored ones, or is it a wider field right now?
Yeah, I kind of think of probably six teams. I'm going to put the 24, the 88. Martinsville's always been a good track for Junior. So I put him in that lump as well. The 29, the 11, us. Who am I missing? I had 6 when I thought of this earlier and was asked this question earlier, but I can't seem to find the other one right now. But I think it is a bit broader. There are more people to be a factor in it. But I think one very consistent thing is three consistent cars to count on that'll be there: the 11, the 24, and the 48. When you look at stats over the last, I don't know, probably 7-8 years, it's been that way, and I would expect those 3 cars to be in the mix. And then there's some other guys that have been pretty strong there as well.
My last question, Sunday in Kansas, you're sitting in the car on pit road, you're listening to Chad on the radio, sort of barking out those orders. What do you think listening to him? I know you've heard him play quarterback before and talk your crew through a situation like that, but what were you thinking listening to him, and then when you were able to see the car and see what he'd orchestrated, what did you think of the whole process?
Well, I knew he would make it sound better than it really was. I mean, that's just part of, as you mentioned, quarterbacking a situation like that. So I could tell from the impact that it wasn't all that hard. I knew that I didn't bend the rear suspension. I knew the front end didn't hit. So from a mechanical standpoint, I knew the chassis was sound, and it was really an aero situation. So, you know, Chad seemed calm as we had 2 or 3 stops to work on the car. And once they didn't need me back to pit road, I assumed that things were at least decent. And I took my time, you know, getting up to speed, and the car felt fine. And then in traffic, it did act different, and I had to be aware of where I put myself around other cars, because the car would lose some grip then. But he wasn't lying. I mean, it wasn't pretty. The car didn't look good. It wasn't all that efficient. It was very slow on corner exit and down the straightaway because the fenders being pushed out like they were. But through the corner, you know, the car still had a spoiler on it in a decent location, and it was creating downforce. So it drove well, and you know, that's what allowed me to work traffic like I did to get up inside the top 10.